Hey everybody, this is Eric Enge. I am CEO of, no, that's not Eric Enge. I am over here, CEO of Stone Temple Consulting, troublemaker over here, that's his job title. But in any case, we're going to do a show today about web analytics, and I'm really excited to have an expert on that topic with me, Mark Traphagen.
Wait a minute, I thought you were the expert on web analytics.
What?
You're not the expert on web analytics? I'm not the expert?
I don't even know how to spell web analytics.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to try that. What are we going to do?
We're going to ask the audience for their help, and we're going to reverse the Q&A today.
So we're the Q and they're the A.
Something like that,
okay,
yes.
All right.
That sound like an exciting show for you out there? Just let us know in the comments how excited you are about this theme. And then, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that was the joke portion of the show, folks.
Yeah, it's all over. No more humor.
Okay.
I don't believe in humor. You know that, right?
Yeah. Well, the analytics aren't good. So.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So, yes, we are going to talk about web analytics today. We are actually going to start about how you get started with it, and so. I think one of the first things to think about, Mark, is what are your first priorities, and what are the kinds of things, what do you want to do with your analytics? Let's start there.
Well, even why do you want to have it? Because it's
That's
kind
what I mean,
of an
yeah,
add-on, right? You can have a website without analytics. Some software providers or website providers may give you some basic analytics. It's going to be very basic, along with your site hosting or something like that. But what we're talking about really is more in-depth analytics, the metrics behind your site, and why would you want to have that? I think the first and most obvious answer is you want to be able. You don't really know in anything in life if you're performing if you can't measure it. It's one thing to say like, I have a great site. I think people like it. Well, what are you quantifying that by, and what does like it even mean? And more importantly, if your website is for business purposes, and we know many of you who watch this show, probably the majority of you, it is that, then that performance becomes not only something interesting to know, nice to know, but becomes essential, critical. You're going to invest a lot of time in trying to make a good website, put good content, all the things you hear from us telling you what to do all the time. But what at the end of the day, is it doing what you want it to do? Is it doing what you designed it to do? So, Eric, what would you add to that? Anything that you say as far as like wanting to have those analytics?
Well, I mean, the thing is, you can't improve what you don't measure, more or less, right? And I mean, don't get me wrong. There'll be people who feel like they're improving things without measuring things formally, but they're at least measuring them at some level, because otherwise you can't define improvement, right? So you might do it very crudely. Okay, so you are now on the backup internet connection here at Stone Temple Consulting. The building power has crashed, but we are running on a 4G stick, basically, which is just like a hotspot on your phone. But sorry for the interrupt.
It was either that or have all the Stone Temple employees start pedaling like mad.
Yeah, well, exactly, and they don't really like to do that.
Yeah.
So sorry for the interrupt, everybody. Thank you for your patience, and thank you for still being here. So where were we? We were talking about.
I was just asking you.
Oh, right.
A brilliant question. Which was.
No, I remember the question. I was just stuck on the adjective. But in any case, so. You want to actually get a little bit deeper, right? Because you could be getting traffic because you get covered in a news story or something like that, which is great, and you'd love to know that, and you're getting traffic directly from that news story. But I think you also want to know how much you're getting from search engines. So now what I'm doing is I'm segmenting that traffic. So how much am I getting from referrals and from what sites? I actually do want that information. News story, a lot of traffic from it. I want to know because I want to do it again, right?
Sure.
And how much am I getting from organic Google traffic? How much am I getting from Bing? Simple segmentation like that goes a long way in helping you understand what's happening for your website.
Yeah. So just where is it coming from? what's being most effective, and then once we've established that, like where's the traffic coming from, in a typical analytics program like Google Analytics, for example, which is what most people are probably going to be familiar with or be the first that they'll implement. You have traffic divided up into a number of higher level segments, and one of the most obvious that you'll see is organic versus direct versus referral traffic. So why don't we talk about what each of those are? In Google Analytics, they're a little more harder to see until you get familiar with the terminology there. Maybe we can talk about that in a bit. Google, like all of your Google users, you know that they play with their terms and what they call things. Like in the Hangout world here, how many times the designations what a Hangout is actually called has changed. The same thing in Google Analytics. They've gone through a number of iterations. They just went through a major change not long ago. For example, this is jumping a little ahead, but they don't call them visits anymore. They're called sessions now in Google Analytics. So you got to, so things like where the traffic is coming from, where to look to see that. Maybe we can dig a little deeper in that in just a bit. But for now, let's talk about those kind of high-level terms, the three main areas, and there may be more that I'm missing, but organic, direct, and referral traffic. So first of all, what is meant by organic traffic there?
So it really means organic, unpaid traffic from search engines, right? So that means you are part of what we used to call the 10 blue links, but part of the stuff where the ads aren't in Google. So the ads are across the top and on the right side, and then over here is the organic stuff. So that's what drives that.
So people finding your site by searching for something on a search engine and then clicking through.
Right. And then, of course, there's a variant which is paid search traffic. Right. So if you're running AdWords campaigns or something of that kind, and that will show up in that bucket.
Right. And Google Analytics, of course, actually segments that out for you, shows you AdWords as a separate category that you can look at alone.
Yeah, exactly. So, by the way, in the comments, let us know how the video is running off of this 4G connection.
I did see some people earlier saying that they were seeing us, seeing and hearing us. So that's.
Yeah, no, I
just want quality. Okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, I just want a quality rating on it.
So you're being analytical about.
I'm being analytical. Okay. I'm trying to collect data here. So this is the data collection show. I thought we started with that theme, right?
Yeah. Analytics data collection.
Yeah. So okay. So we have organic traffic, and then we have.
What about direct? What does that mean?
Yeah, direct or referral traffic, depending. But I think Google Analytics does call it direct, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, there's two: direct and referral.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yes. Fair enough. So direct traffic is just thank you. Well, if you're going to answer the question, why don't you answer the question?
I could do the ventriloquist thing, where I'll get off the screen there. Talking,
yes.
You move your mouth.
Type it in. Okay. Yeah, there you go. You go. Yeah. That's direct.
Direct is just exactly. You just demonstrate it. When somebody actually intentionally comes to your site, they enter it in the address bar of their browser. That's direct. So always that. And then referral traffic.
So referral traffic is when you have a link on some other website, and people click on that link and they come to your site, right? And that's, I was referring to that a little earlier. You get an article in a news journal of some sort, and people see it there and they click on a link to you that's in that article, or maybe in a attribution at the bottom of the article, and you can get traffic that way as well.
And that includes social traffic, right?
It does, although sometimes, depending on what's going on with Google Analytics, there's funky things that happen with how that gets tracked.
Yeah, well, they kind of group it under referral generally, but then under referrals, they segment that out as social traffic, so you can actually see. And in Google Analytics now, there are some social programs that have been made partners with, obviously Google Plus that was an easy one, I think, for them to probably get a partnership with, but there's a few other, unfortunately, as you might expect, the big ones that you really want aren't partnering, like Twitter or Facebook, but there's some other more secondary or tertiary social sites that partner. The ones that are partners, I forget their exact terminology for that, you can actually dig even deeper and get even more data. For example, with Google Plus, referrals into your analytics, you can dig down and see numbers of +1s, numbers of shares, things like that. So a little more detailed about the actual activity.
Yeah, well, and that's great incremental data to get. Now, I know we said that we were going to focus on web analytics, but it's worth taking a little bit of time to mention what some of the other kinds of analytics are, right? So you know, just using something like circle count is a form of analytics, right? Just seeing what's going on, or monitoring your page view metrics in Google Plus, or
insights in Facebook or something like that.
Yeah, and same thing on YouTube, right? You can get that kind of data, you know, view data and things like that. So there's a lot of different ways that you can collect data, although I think we're not focusing on those other ways today, right? We're staying on web analytics.
Mostly focus on the web analytics, right? But maybe some of those might be, I think, in particular, YouTube analytics might be something that we could dig into in more detail in the coming day. That's a whole subject in itself. And
most important comment of the show so far, as always, from Em and John's, the savages that scalp poor Mark Travigan may still be nearby. Yeah. But he doesn't seem at all worried. Yes.
It was actually, Alan, what actually happened was on a previous show, one of your slightly threatening comments to another commenter in the event page frightened me so much I lost all my hair. Yeah, so you can have that effect on people now.
As you can tell, it doesn't take very much. But so with that, just want to remind everybody before we go on, this is the Digital Marketing Answer Show, and we do try to take a lot of audience comments. I know that we didn't do that well last week because we just got lost in conversation with David Amerlin, which is way too easy to do. Yeah. So those shows, when I'm not like running for an airplane, often run a little bit late for that reason. But we are definitely inviting lots of questions today, so bring them on.
Can I ask one? And I hope I'm not going to stump you here, but this is one that I often hear and wonder about myself. We see a lot of times people will compare, and they'll see an analytic in something like their Google Analytics or some other analytic program that they actually have installed with their site. And then they go and look at the same metric in another analytics program. And almost all the time, you don't see exactly the same number for the same metric. Can you explain a little bit, why that might be, why that is, and maybe why we shouldn't be too frantic about that?
Yeah, well, I would argue that it's virtually impossible that you will see the same number. That in some regard, by the way, was a major softball. Back in 2007.
Security folks.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, very good. I might be able to find it. It's probably over there somewhere.
Bouncing around.
Oh yeah, I will find it in a second. But I actually did a study where we took 7 different analytics packages and ran them simultaneously across 4 different websites and actually measured the differences in the way they measured. And we found that the low reporting analytics package would report as little as 2/3 as much traffic as the high reporting package. So that's 33% difference measured that way, or if I'd been smarter and said it the other way and said a high reporting package reported 50% more, which is mathematically accurate there, it sounds like 50% more, so I'll say it that way. Either way, it's big.
If you're following us out there, explain it to me later.
Yeah, well, there you go. So the point of all this is that they measure very, very differently. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But just to give the short explanation of it, the web is a jungle, right? And analytics packages have to make some assumptions about the data they're seeing. And I'm going to give you an example of something, which is if somebody comes to your website and they land on your website and then they open up in their browser and then someone says, oh, time to go to lunch, and they go out and they have a 3-martini lunch. Lord knows, I hope not, but that's beside the point. And then they come back an hour and a half later and they refresh their screen and they they hop into their browser and they start looking at this website that they loaded before they went to lunch, your web analytics package will count that as 2 visits. And the reason is because the web analytics can't tell the difference between the scenario I just described and somebody who goes to your website and then hand types in a URL and goes to a different website, or pulls up a bookmark and goes to a different website and goes away for an hour and a half and then revisits your website later. The analytics can't tell the difference. And this is where you get into one of the, from a technical perspective, this is very simple to explain, but it's actually very complicated for people to fully absorb the implications. But let me try it anyway. Web analytics packages like Google Analytics have JavaScript on your web pages. So they only know when you load the web page because the JavaScript runs at that time, right? So until you do something else to cause some more JavaScript to execute somewhere else on your website, they can't tell what's going on. All right, so that's a key thing to understand if you're trying to get deep in how analytics work. I'm not sure we're going to go that deeply today, but the point is that how you handle a situation like that, or how do you handle somebody who comes to your website but there's no web referrer, or some other part of the HTTP status stream that they normally expect is corrupt or missing. How those scenarios get handled, it's handled very differently by each of the analytics packages.
Yeah, it's kind of a decision that they make, right, about how they...
That's right. Some engineer makes a decision, and it can result in very different measurements by different analytics packages. Having said that, which was a lot of detail, let me come back up to what the real conclusion is, all right? The point is not to compare one analytics package to another. That's not useful data. What is useful is if you have 10,000 visitors per day on your site, and you had that all through February, and then in the beginning of March, and then on the 5th of March, suddenly you start getting 12,000 visitors a day. It's a good bet your traffic went up 20%. So these relative measurements...
Not exactly 20%, but you know that it went up.
Yeah, well, more or less 20%. I mean, 18 to 22. I mean, it's fairly, it's statistically significant to know that that relative movement you see with the analytics package you're using is meaningful. It compares in measurement with a different analytics package is you're never going to be able to get to the bottom of what those differences are.
So what you're really looking for is trends working off a baseline of the same program.
That's right. And now that I've done my piece, I'm leaving.
Okay, thank you very much, Eric. And that, since that's everything that I know about analytics, that concludes our, no, it doesn't conclude our show today.
There you go.
Eric's getting a very useful piece of visual aid at this moment here. High tech here. This is the new screen sharing software first being revealed here in Hangouts, and you're seeing it here first. This is very, very lifelike screen sharing.
So yes, that's the report that I was referring to. Sorry for the glare. There, the 2007 Analytics Shootout, it was called. You can actually search on that report. You just type Web Analytics Shootout, it still comes up. And the data in that report is still valid today because it basically explains everything I just did.
The relative differences between the different software or different analytics packages.
Yeah. So we
any questions yet here?
We do. We have one from Steve Bonin here. So what do you do to get that second action so there is a defined time period? What are some good examples? So I think, Steve, that you're asking about what I was just explaining, this delay when somebody goes away. Oops. No, I'm sorry. I'm spiraling out of control here, people. So what do you do when someone goes away for lunch and it gets counted as 2 visits? Most analytics packages actually treat that time interval as being 30 minutes. There isn't really anything you can do about it.
So if somebody leaves a tab open with your page for 6 hours, you're not going to get a 6-hour time on page.
That's correct. In fact, excuse me, that's another thing worth explaining, which is that when someone visits one page on your site, you do not get a time on page measurement because the JavaScript only loaded once. So they don't actually get time on page measurements until you visit multiple pages.
They click somewhere else, take another action on your site that triggers the script again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a very important fact to know, and probably one that I think a vast majority of people wouldn't realize, is that it's not like the analytics program is watching a person on your site at every moment and measuring what they're doing at any given moment. It's only when they take an action that triggers the JavaScript on your site that the analytics can make a measurement. There's a simple way of explaining it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So we have a question here from Dustin Stout. It'd be great if you guys could go over any custom dashboards you guys use.
That's jumping into the deeper stuff a little bit, but
do we want to hold and take that one later, or?
Well, why don't we go ahead so we don't forget it, if you don't mind. I just explain first. I always like to explain for I know people that watch the show at all different levels. By a custom dashboard, Dustin means many analytics programs, including Google Analytics, allow you to set up something called a dashboard. Well, they'll have a dashboard. The dashboard in an analytics program is basically kind of the default view. It's an overview of what's going on your site. Think about it like, if you had on a car, you have your instrument panel, basically, that's behind the steering wheel. If you drive a regular car, like Eric, who drives one of those weird Teslas, which, it's just like the inside of a Star Trek machine in there. But you have your basic instrument cluster, tells you basic things. And then if you're kind of a real hot rod car geek, you might have, back in the old days, you'd have, you might have installed an extra instrument panel with tachometer and all kinds of different things that take a little bit deeper dive. So that dashboard is that, the basic, what's my speed, maybe how much gas do I have, and how's the oil pressure. Now, a custom dashboard is the ability to set up and decide what metrics do I want to see on a dashboard. So, for example, if you want to take a quick look at your social media traffic, and there's certain things, there's certain social media sites that you really care about, and there's certain traffic metrics that you want to see. You can put those into a custom dashboard. You name it, you save it, and then when you go into your analytics program, click, and there it is. There's the metrics that you want to see without having to do a lot of filtering and things that you normally would do to get that.
Right. So an example of something you might do, let's say you have 4 different sections on your site, and just to make it easy, we'll make it an e-commerce site. Okay. So you have sports, home goods, clothing, and cars. There we go. I was actually going to start sweating if I hadn't thought of that 4th thing. But
since the power's off and we don't have any air conditioning, we're sweating anyway.
Yeah, well, yeah, no kidding. Okay, so you have these 4 different things. Boy, I hope the battery on this computer is going to last too. But so you have these 4 different sections of your website. You have a concept called segmentation, right, where you can look at those 4 different sections and see, okay, for people who initially land on the site in the auto section, how does their conversion compare to someone who lands in the sports section versus the clothing versus the home goods sections? And you could put that into a custom dashboard, right? Because you would create these segments and you would use that as a way of getting a quick report on how everything is doing. In fact, that's a whole useful topic that we should just spend some time on as well, because I think it plays into the dashboard topic, which is just what segmentation is all about, right?
Because that's where you really are slicing and dicing the data to get to what's most important to you.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So you can segment on a whole bunch of criteria. You can segment based on how do social media visitors do versus organic search versus direct versus referral. All those various things, and you can measure them separately. You can segment based on geography. So how are my Asian visitors doing versus my European versus my North American, for example, or by region of country. How are my Massachusetts visitors doing versus my North Carolina visitors? This is actually a North Carolina visitor at the moment.
And he's doing very well on, if you notice, like the time on site here for me today is for Stone Temple Consulting has been off the roof, off the charts.
Yeah,
I've been here since 8:30 this morning.
Yeah, so that's what, 5 hours time on site?
Yeah, unfortunately, I need to take another action before the JavaScript will trigger to measure that. So.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Right now, he's threatening to become a bounce. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, what's my bounce rate, folks? You measure.
There you go. Yeah, so, but this segmentation is where there's an enormous amount of power in analytics. Mm-hmm. And, how much segmentation it makes sense to do depends on, the complexity of your website and what you are trying to accomplish with things. I might be trying to measure something different for my social media visitors, right? I might not be so much concerned about whether or not they turn into immediate orders. So that's one of the things that I think that you really want to think about. And then what I might do with geographic could be quite different. So these things really kind of play into how you think about this.
Yep. And then I was going to say something about that, but yeah, it's kind of being able to drill down and see what really matters. Doing comparisons. I know what I want to say about custom dashboards in particular. One of the cool things with Google Analytics is that people can design a custom dashboard and they can actually share it out publicly. And you can install that dashboard on your own analytics. So you can do searches on Google and find there's people out there that have designed really incredible dashboards. You might find one that somebody's already designed that meets your needs. So like they'll explain in a blog post that this dashboard shows you this and segments by these, and you say that's great, that's exactly what I wanted. You can install that right into your Google Analytics and you're good to go. You didn't have to do all the work of building it. So it's kind of like a plugin.
Right. So now, also with dashboards, another application you have here is, let's say there's multiple people in your organization. What the CEO of the company wants to see may well be quite different than an individual account manager versus a marketing person. So you can actually design different dashboards for each audience, right? So the CEO will most likely get some more top-line data, whereas somebody responsible for the conversions on the website will get much more sales-oriented data. It might get some of the segmentation that I was speaking about in order to drill down. And then if you have a web analyst, someone who's really, in the business of digging into data in a big way, they might get a completely different report.
I've got a question, actually. I know we have some other viewer questions here, and I want to get to those, but I think this is a very fundamental one, and one that somebody new to Google Analytics in particular looking at it might be confounded by, because and as soon as I say the next sentence, you're going to know where I'm going. One of the things that occur to me that I want to know first, if I install Google Analytics, I want to look is, like, what are the keywords that people are using to get to my site? What are people typing into Google to find my site? Very useful data. I want to know what people are searching for that. But these days, if I go to that section where I would see those keywords, I'm going to see, in almost all cases, the number one keyword is going to be something in brackets that says not provided. And what is that? And why is that there?
It's like a fungus that won't go away, right? I mean.
Yeah. So just put some.
You wanted a more complete answer than that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So not provided, unfortunately, is a result of Google's move towards secure search, and there's a lot of technical detail in exactly how this works, but functionally, what it means to us is that people coming from Google search, most of them, the great majority of them, are the keyword data isn't actually passed through to your analytics package. So it can't see it, and that's why you see that not provided thing there. what it means is we're getting a lot less keyword data than we used to, which is really unfortunate because keyword data was a great thing to be able to get because it really would tell you a lot. What I tend to do now to try to work around that is I look a lot at most popular landing pages, okay, and then corresponding ranking reports, which tell me where I'm most likely, what kinds of keywords I'm most likely to
So you're saying
get.
like you basically know what keywords you were targeting with those landing pages, and if they're performing well or better than others, it tells you that those keywords are likely ranking better and doing better in your.
Well, and you can actually check the rankings with a separate tool, a rankings tool, right? And at the same time, you do get some keyword data still, so you can use that to sort of confirm that conclusion.
And what about the Google Webmaster Tools? I know that this show isn't about that, but if you're looking for that keyword data, that's another resource, right?
It is, yeah, that's a resource. It's not very precise in terms of what it gives you, but it does give you some qualitative data. I mean, it looks quantitative because they have numbers next to it, but it's not that accurate. You can also, don't you still get actual keyword data from Bing these days too? I know I think they're moving in a direction where we're going to lose that.
Yeah, I've heard rumors.
Yeah, but you can use all of those things to get some keyword data and hopefully, get some comfort or information on what's coming into you. And then you supplement that with rankings data and landing page reports, most popular landing pages, and all that can still give you a lot of information as to what pages are performing best for you and what keywords are most likely driving that traffic. So it's a lot of work actually to get at all of that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right. And if you don't have a lot of time, you can just go into Google Analytics and make use of the data that we do have available there.
Okay. Any question?
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to take, is it better to use search engine optimization query search?
Within analytics?
Okay. I don't know. Someone should help clarify the question for us because I don't get that one.
All right. Cheryl, if you can clarify a little bit more what you mean by that, we'll come back to it.
Okay.
Some at the top there that you have going on.
Yeah. Okay. Also, is that why we get these? Please confirm that you want to leave this site messages. Is that?
I think I was referring back earlier to.
Oh, the bounce rate thing. Yeah. There's a whole good thread there. It may be why you're getting that, so that they can get tracking of that. There's other strategies you can use, by the way, and this is really important to mention. If somebody clicks on a link on your site, right, that normally would go away from your site, and Google Analytics wouldn't have its JavaScript execute. But you can add an attribute in there called onClick. And onClick equals, and then, something. You can look it up. But what it will do is it will generate a Google Analytics event when anybody clicks a link to leave your site. So similar to what you're asking, Steve, this is a way of trying to track people who are just leaving. So you can get that time on page, time on site data, even for a single page view. Yeah. So there's that. Okay, so we can unpin that one. Okay, what else? So fire some questions at us here, folks.
I got a couple of them.
Yeah, I know. I don't know.
Don't like those people.
No. Yeah, well, I don't like those people.
Yeah. Well, that Dustin Stout guy is kind of scruffy and.
Well, I think we already. He's just noting, right? Yeah, so we already talked about that one. Thank you, Dustin, for weighing in as always. And then I'm not sure. I'm just not. I'm uncomfortable with asking questions about modifying the instrument. It's just.
Yeah. Okay.
Just kidding.
We're not talking about those kind of websites today.
So, but this is another question I think we need clarification on. So,
what instrument and what changes, I guess, is what we need to know for that one.
Yes, indeed. So there is. So, Ammon, you should explain to us what this presentation. Oh, it doesn't show entirely here. SlideShare does here.
On killing analytics. That doesn't sound like what we're trying to do today.
Yes, indeed. So, Aaron, if you could explain that, that would be great too. Yeah. So, I think the biggest thing you really should do, though, I want to back up a little bit.
Sure.
The biggest thing you should do at the beginning of the entire exercise is you should define what your goals are for your business, and therefore what your goals are from analytics. And this really is, you know, the beginning of the exercise. And it differs for different people, right? And like business goal or goals for your website, your goal for a website might be to share some information with somebody and get them to read a particular page. An informational website, that might be the case, right? So if you have a, you might count it as a win if you get somebody to your politician's page where he or she explains his point of view about some I don't know, political matter, right? And that might be the win, and there might be a bigger win if they, like, you know, sign up to contribute or whatever. But the number of page views you get of that page is by itself a win. For somebody else, it might be having someone click on a contact us thing and filling out a form, you know, to give information. Somewhere else, it might be downloading a white paper. And you might have many different kinds of conversions, and I think you want to, you know, be aware of all those kinds of things. And
what you just mentioned brings up another area, especially in, using Google Analytics terminology here. Something you can do in Google Analytics is you can set up goals. You want to discuss a little bit about what goals are and how you would use those? You really just talked about them, but
well, right. But let me take it a little further. So, you know, if somebody buys your product, then that goal has a fairly tangible result to it. It's
a transaction.
Yeah, $49.95 for whatever they bought, and you know that, you know, it cost you $20 to make it. Your profit is $29.95, and that's a fairly simple calculation. Something which actually needs to be set up for analytics to track it. But we'll get back to that. But you might have other forms of conversions, like downloading a white paper, a contact us request, or just arriving at a particular web page and perusing the information there.
I think you can do things like, correct me if I'm wrong here, but can't you even say, like, have a goal of somebody revisits the website more than once within 30 days or something like that?
Yes, so you can define more complex goals. And there is a way in Google Analytics to set these things up. And you can actually assign a dollar value to each one, right?
Even if it's not a transaction.
That's right. So you could say that a contact us request is worth, you know, $5, right? And maybe you wouldn't do that if it was a $49.95 product, like I talked about, a $49.95 product. But if you're selling a $1,000 product, right, and you know for every 20 contact us requests, you get a conversion, and that conversion happens in a phone call, which you can't measure in your web analytics, you might assign for every contact us request a $50 value, right? And you know, because every 20 of those you get a conversion, that's a good way to optimize your site, to get those sort of measurements, because now you drive a lot of people. How do I get more contact us requests?
Yeah, it's a good quick way to see it, because you can look right at the dashboard and say, oh, this landing page is worth, you know, $10,000 to me. This one's worth $500. You know, it gives you that measure very quickly.
Yeah. So that's a very, very useful thing to do. Okay, so I'm going to take on Get Cloud Services. Maybe you go with the idea of vanity metrics and the metrics that really should be monitored for business goals. So I usually take care of my vanity with a mirror, actually. But
my vanity metric, my only vanity metric, is how many times in a hangout with David Amarillo does he say Mark is exactly right. That's the only vanity metric I care about.
Excellent. So I think we got about 8 last show.
Yeah.
So that was a good show for you. But it's a great question. So
well, what's meant by a vanity metric here? I think we could illustrate it.
Yeah, it's something you could even consider your number of followers on Google Plus a vanity metric, right? I mean,
never talk about that.
Yeah, there you go. By the way, I checked. By the end of this show, I think we're going to cross between the two of us 100,000 followers.
Yeah, but that means nothing to us.
Nothing at all.
Just a vanity metric.
Yeah. Okay. So, of course, it's almost all him, but that's beside the point. I get to state it that way. It makes me feel like a participant. But yes, metric that might not have a lot of direct business value. Some would argue, by the way, that the CEO comes down and says, why don't we rank #1 for RV rentals? I want to rank #1 for RV rentals. And then you say, yeah, but our traffic tripled in the last month. Our business has expanded by 287%. And margins are up from our normal, 75% to 90%. The business is rocking, and the CEO goes, but why don't we rank #1 for RV rentals? And
when I started this company, we were #1 for RV rentals.
Yeah, right. And that's when you quit your job and you go work for someone else.
I actually have a friend, hi Brian McDonald, that quit from a SEO of a very large corporation on that very issue.
By the way, vanity metrics aren't always by definition useless, but we're obviously, it would be useful if you were in the RV rental business to rank #1 for that term.
Sure.
They just can be taken out of context or potentially not be that useful. So.
Maybe the moral of the story here is any of us can get caught up in that. When you start looking at analytics, it can be very exciting if you see certain numbers going up, but you always have to come back to what we've talked about throughout the show here, your basic business goals, and you have to do the hard self-discipline of saying, like, does that number really matter to my goals, to my bottom line, to what I'm really after here? Wonderful to see that number climbing, awesome, but is it the number that really matters? That's what you have to always ask yourself.
Right, and it's the reason why I said a while back how important it is to set your goals and really understand what you're trying to accomplish with the analytics. There is so much data in any analytics package, and Google Analytics is no exception, that you can get lost on journeys of discovery that actually don't end up serving a really useful business purpose. And you really do want to avoid that. It's actually very important to stay focused on what it is that will help you accomplish your goals.
What and I don't mean to play stump Eric again here. Maybe if you don't have any examples, that's fine. But what are some things that if you think of any areas where people get deceived by analytics, like they think they're seeing something significant, but it's really maybe not that significant, or a number that I know I've heard sometimes like that bounce rate is something that people get very fixated on. It may not be telling them what they.
Yeah, bounce rate is a great example. Thank you for giving me an example, because otherwise I would have had a blank stare. But so bounce rate is a great example because sometimes bounce rate is an indicator of quality.
And then what is bounce rate? Just for
bounce rate is somebody comes and views only one page before they leave.
Bounce out, right?
Right. Yeah. If what they were doing was looking for a quick piece of reference information, and they get it on that one page and they leave, then that's an indicator of quality, right? Let me give you another example. Somebody comes to your article on your blog, okay, and they share it on Google Plus. They +1 it. They tweet it. They share it on Facebook. They like it. They share it on Pinterest.
They write their mother about it.
They write their mother about it. They viewed only one page and left. Is that a bad visit?
No, I mean they spread your word. They spread your name to many other people.
Right. So that's the kind of thing that you really want to be careful about. So
so you can put too much weight in a metric
That's
and
right.
make bad decisions.
So if you're really trying to look at your analytics and understand how users are engaging with your site and whether or not you've got good engagement, yeah, you can use bounce rate, but you should also look at time on site, page views per visitor, and percentage of returning visits versus new visits. Right? All of those give you different measures of what the engagement level is with your site.
I just want to quickly note, Christopher Volkman, Vanity Fair metrics are extremely important if you're the SEO for the Vanity Fair magazine. Otherwise, yeah, I lost that. How do I unpin it?
Here, I'll do it. Okay.
Or you do it at the top.
Mark broke the Hangout. There we go. I unbroke it though. So yeah. So that's, again, it's just really important to not necessarily take the first number. I actually published a study at one point that involved showing where bounce rate, it was done by, who was it? I can't remember the name of the company. I'll look it up in a minute. What they showed is that for one particular class of businesses, which people were coming to your site on high intent commercial queries, something like buy running shoes. That's very high intent because the word buy is in there. That bounce rate and conversion rate rise together. So the bounce rate is higher because of the commercial intent of the query.
Because they know right what they're coming here to do, and they do it.
Or they don't.
Or they don't, yeah, right.
All right, so they make that decision quite quickly.
Right.
So when you have a high intent query like that, you should actually expect your bounce rate to be high. But their data also showed that the sales were much higher on those terms. So this is a case where analytics can really deceive you. If you just looked at the bounce rate and tried to draw your conclusion from that, you'd be in real trouble.
So maybe a good moral of the story here for this one is don't buy into any too simple truisms about, you'll hear these things, high bounce rate is bad. Well, as Eric just explained to you, it's not always bad. Or lots of visitors to the site is great. Well, it might not be so great if they're visiting and all leaving very quickly, and it's not for a good reason that Eric just explained. So a lot of that, as you can probably figure out by now, is involving both understanding your business goals and what you really want people to do on your site, and combining metrics together, looking at things together. As Eric just said, our bounce rate is going up, but our conversions are going up too. Then you can start to think about why that might be, and you get more meaningful data than just looking, oh, bounce rate's going up, that's bad, we got to change everything on the site, which might then mess up your conversions.
There you go. And there we go. Christopher Volkman has a new label for the show. Yeah. Okay, so there we go.
It's the SE show, Stump Eric show.
There you go. Awesome. Cool. So, okay, we need more questions from the audience, folks. We've tried to provide an overview of things here to...
Chris actually had a serious question.
Oh, since we're general...
I can't believe it.
Yeah. This is not the Christopher Volkman that I know.
No.
But anyway, since
you can now, I just want to break in and say, Christopher, you can now, the real Christopher Volkman, you can now report imposter profiles on Google+, so you want to go after this guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Since we are generally moving towards mobile, isn't Google Analytics relatively useless?
Or aren't.
I don't get the or aren't part, but anyway. So that's a great question. The issue is that analytics tracking doesn't work so well on mobile devices. So it definitely impacts you. There are different kinds of tools that people give you for measuring mobile analytics. Unfortunately, I'm not actually that knowledgeable about them. But yeah, there are issues there. There's no question about it. But we do still get more than half our traffic from desktop sites. So I think you can still use that.
Yeah, and you may it's kind of like the not provided scenario. As mobile becomes more and more prevalent, especially as for you, you might have to be dependent on just doing some extrapolations. Looking mostly at your desktop data and trying to extrapolate what's happening on that. Hopefully, the analytics geeks and companies will come up with ways to measure mobile traffic better in the future, because as we all know, that is the way it's going.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is the phones need to be able to support the things that the analytics packages need.
That's the problem, right?
Yeah. So comment here from David Graham: bounce rates. When someone says high bounce rates are generally bad, it's a good. Well, okay, yeah, they're often bad. I'll agree with that. And
yeah, they're rarely a good thing. We wanted to outline some circumstances where that might not be the case, and your assumption that they're always bad could lead you to a bad conclusion.
That's right. Yeah, it might. In the example I gave, you might draw the conclusion, I don't want to optimize for those high intent purchase keywords. Yet that's where you were making all your money, and you would not want to get to that conclusion. So
but that's a good point that he's made. I don't want to be saying like totally ignore the truisms out there, because it is generally true that a high bounce rate is not a good thing. So if you're seeing a high bounce rate, don't say to yourself like, oh, Mark and Eric said you can ignore that. That's not what we said. You do want to be looking into the cause of that. What we did want you to be aware of is just that it might be because something good is happening. So you want to look a little more deeply when you see a metric changing.
Right. Well, and it really gets to the notion that you want to have, whenever you see one metric, find confirming metrics.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So don't rely on a single data point.
We're down to the final minutes here.
Yeah, all right. So we love it when bounce rates go up due to an AdSense ad. Well, that's what you get for plastering that AdSense ad across the middle of your website. Just kidding you, Ronaldo. I'm sure that's not what you meant. But
yeah, watch out for the panda.
Yeah, well, there you go. So that can, and then Ammon John's here. Google treat high bounce rates as a sign they did wrong. Take a short time. So I'm actually going to extend that a little bit, Ammon. I think what matters more here is when a user clicks on a search result, goes to your website, okay, they go back to the SERPs, but then they click on somebody else's search result.
Pogo sticking.
Pogo sticking. And it's how quickly all of that happens. So there's a concept of the dwell time on your website, which isn't something Google Analytics can measure for you when they view only one page. But what's the dwell time on the website before they leave it, go back to the search result, and then click on someone else's result?
Because if they went to your site even for a short time, came back, and they do an entirely different search, or don't do any more search or more clicking at all, that could very well mean that they got the answer they were looking for. They were happy. So that's why I don't think they do penalize just for somebody coming back quickly to the search. So also, don't some people speculate that refining the query might be a bad sign? Like if they go to your site and they come back and they have to add more words to the query, that may mean like what was on your site wasn't a good answer.
It could be. It could be that it means that, but I think we want to extend this conversation a little bit too, because there's cases in point, certain search queries where it's actually very natural for a user to want to view multiple web pages. So somebody who's in comparison shopping mode is actually going to go to more than one website, most likely.
Maybe a normal behavior.
So it's easy to draw these generalizations out, but it doesn't always work out as simply as you hope. And by the way, Gina Fidel has given us a new label here, GA equals grammar analytics. So,
well, Gina, as a former English teacher myself, I'm very in favor of grammar analytics. It's good, like, and yeah. So Ammon's grammar bounce rate was not good for this particular show.
Yes, there you go. All right, so we're at the end of the rope here. That's a bad analogy, but
hopefully our audience is not at the end of their ropes.
Yeah, well, there you go. We do have another show today. We are doing a unique event. We are going to have 25 plus people in Stone Temple headquarters here as part of the second New England Google Plus meetup event. and we have a good 55-inch monitor on the wall with a camera mounted to it. We are going to be piped into a session, or we're going to be piping Ronnie Bincer in there for a Hangout on Air to talk about unique ways to use Hangouts on Air. So
Very meta.
it's very, yes, yeah. So you can join us for that. That starts at 7:30 tonight.
That's the cool thing I've been telling people all day, is that, you know, anybody in the world can come to the New England Google Plus Hangout tonight. And that, look on both Eric's stream and my stream for a share of that event. You can click into it and come and join us tonight.
All right. So hopefully you all got value out of this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. That's it for the Digital Marketing Answer Show. Oh,
Thursday, AJ Cohn.
Oh, yeah. I'm a terrible
more AJ Cohn. More AJ Cohn in my monitors. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
That's where I'm on.
Yeah, ringing the cowbell for AJ. Yeah. So there we go. Yes, AJ Cohn, we're going to talk about when SEO is not SEO.
Intriguing topic. You want to be here for that. Please share that. Please let people know that's going on. If you don't know AJ Cohn, come to the show on Thursday. You won't be sorry. I guarantee it.
All right, thanks everybody. That's it for the Digital Marketing Answer Show, episode number 18, by the way. Hopefully we'll see you tonight, Thursday, next week, and every other show we ever do. Okay, that might seem like a big burden, but thanks everybody.
CTA.
Yep, bye.
Bye now.